It is wild to think that some people still don't believe systemic racism is real. For about 250 years, black people in America were subjected to race-based intergenerational chattel slavery. They were beaten, raped, tortured, cannibalized, and enslaved. This wasn't just a few bad apples, it was a whole system designed to dehumanize and exploit them. Because of these horrific conditions, very few black Americans were able to accumulate any wealth. Then came the 13th Amendment in 1865, which supposedly ended slavery. But here's the kicker. It included a clause that allowed slavery and involuntary servitude as punishment for a crime. At that time, not every state had a prison, but after the 13th Amendment, states started investing in building prisons and creating laws known as Jim Crow laws that essentially made it illegal to be black. They rounded up black Americans and enslaved them in the prison system, destroying their properties and any wealth they might have had. It has been about 60 years since the end of the Jim Crow era, but the impact is still felt today. White Americans had a 350-year head start in building their wealth and empires on the backs of black Americans. And let's not ignore the fact that black Americans make up roughly 38% of the prison population, despite being only 13% of the U.S. population. This is a glaring sign of racial discrimination that stems from the Jim Crow era. Black Americans never received reparations for the centuries of exploitation and abuse. So how can we claim that we're equal? The reality is, if you're born black in the United States, you are significantly more likely to be born into poverty compared to being born white. That is systemic. Equality in the U.S. is a myth created to hide the fact that systemic racism still exists today. If you don't believe systemic racism exists, let me ask you this. When did it end? Did it end whenever slavery ended? Because we still have laws that disproportionately affect black people. Did it end when the first Civil Rights Act was instated? Since then, numerous race-based laws have been written into law, including the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act of 2022. Systemic racism did not just disappear with the swipe of a pen. Why do you think we've had so many race-based laws passed trying to create a more equitable society since the passing of the first Civil Rights Act? Because that's not how any of this works. Equality does not exist within the United States. So if you're still skeptical, think about this. When exactly did systemic racism end? Because from where I'm standing, it never did.